Good morning, everyone. Hello, welcome to Miami Herbert. I'm Ann Olazabal, Interim Dean here at the Business School. We are very fortunate and delighted to be hosting this month's installment of The Future of Leadership, our partnership with McKinsey's Miami office. Today we have, as you know, a great speaker. We also have Tom Bartman, who is an alum and who is a partner here at McKinsey's Miami office. He's going to do an introduction of our speaker, and then I'll come back in and we'll do some questions. Please hold your questions till the end. We'll do a robust question and answer session when we're done asking just a few questions of Shane.
Great. Thank you, Ann, and welcome everybody. Good morning. You know, as the business community in Miami has grown, McKinsey has found so many opportunities to highlight fantastic local leaders. And you know, we view this as an opportunity to continue building the leadership talent of South Florida, and we're honored and delighted to partner with the Miami Herbert Business School, my alma mater, so I'm happy to come back here. I was in your seat at one point, so thank you. And I would say even more, we're blessed to have Shane joining us this morning to share about his experience. And so Shane shared a lot of the things that he was doing. I'm sure not even everything you were doing these days this morning as we were catching up over breakfast. And so bear with me. I have to have my iPad because his resume is distinguished and long. But I think we'll start with your foundation, right? And so the Battier Take Charge Foundation, where you're investing in developing our next generation of leaders and helping youth to take charge of their lives and their potential. Shane, beyond that, is also an All-American, a champion at multiple levels of competition, a scholar athlete, and a two-time NBA champion, as well as a legend for any fans of Duke basketball that are here. Beyond that, he is also a very high-performing business executive, renowned within the basketball world for the use of data in informing player personnel and player development to help them reach their full potential. And he was, in that role, Vice President of Analytics and Basketball Development for the Miami Heat. And he's also used that to extend into being on the board, where he serves on Yext and a number of other companies he shared, as well as working with the Center for Ethics and Leadership at Duke University's Fuqua School, as well as the Positive Coaching Alliance. So without further ado, folks, please join me in welcoming Shane and thanking him for his time.
So as Tom said, and I'm sure our audience knows, you are a decorated NBA player, among other many great things that you've been up to in your still young career. Our audience will probably be familiar with Michael Lewis's book Moneyball. It's a few years back, but it's sort of a great story about statistics and analytics as it relates to players. But I don't want to ask about that. What I want to ask about is something that Lewis said about you. And I'm going to look at my notes because it's a quote. In his book Moneyball, he wrote, in the New York Times, he was quoted as having said, "Every team you've ever played on acquired some magical ability to win." What do you attribute this to? Is it leadership? What is it?
Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. It's a huge honor for me to speak. It's the closest speech. It's a home game for me. I live 2 minutes that way, so thank you for being so close. Dino Zabal, the answer to your question is I learned everything I had to learn about winning in kindergarten. True story. I grew up outside Detroit, Michigan, and I was blessed, to be three things: mixed, tall, and poor. Blessed, I was the only mixed kid in the Birmingham area. The only minority. Eddie Toma was my Hispanic friend, and I was the black kid. I was the only kid in town who had a black father and a white mother. I had no role models. There was no one I could talk to about being mixed growing up in a very Caucasian world, right? I was a foot taller than everybody else. I was that kid who had to carry a birth certificate to every Little League game because all the parents said, he's not 10, right? And we were not wealthy by any means. I mean, we had leaks in the roof. I still remember what a government cheese sandwich tastes like, going to the food bank, all right? That was my childhood, So everywhere I looked, I was different. But there was one place that I fit in, and that was at recess, as crazy as that sounds. And I realized that when I was in kindergarten, first grade, that at recess, when I helped my friends win kickball, win baseball, win sandlot football, win whatever competition that we're playing, guess what? I'm no longer the mixed tall and poor kid. I'm like everybody else, right? So I became just obsessed with how do we win? Now, some of that had to do with my performance, but ultimately it wasn't about my performance. It was about our performance. And I'm proud to say that was the hallmark of my entire NBA career. I was known more for being part of winning basketball teams, and I won a lot. We won a lot, more than my individual stats. And that's why I was a compelling figure for Michael Lewis. Most basketball fans, when you ask, how's Shane Battier, he's kind of slow, kind of unathletic, he's like really good looking, but like, he's not a superstar by any means, but every team I ever won, and they won big. And so I'm passionate now talking to people about being an integral part of a team. You want to create value for yourself, you want to be remembered as someone special, be a part of a winning team and be on the floor when you do it.
Awesome.
I have goosebumps. That was amazing, Shane. Thank you. I mean, I'm trying to think about how in business we can adopt similar principles. And I guess one of the interesting things I have reflecting on the opening you gave, Ann, and the transition that you made from being a player to a member of the leadership team to now being a business executive is the nature of how supporting teams changes through that. So as a player on the court, you can be the star and you can throw the team on your shoulder on the sandlot to win. In business, in a lot of ways, it needs to be more collaborative. How have you thought about making that transition in your own operating model and in your career?
Yeah. Well, I was so lucky to play for some of the greatest coaches of all time. Guy up the road, Mike Krzyzewski, the all-time winningest college basketball coach, taught me a lot. I wouldn't be here without him. Was an amazing mentor. But one of the things he said that always stuck with me, he said, look, people get caught up in roles and who's a superstar, who's a role player. Guess what? We are all role players. Every last one of us. Now, for some of us, our role is to go out and score 20 points and take the big shots, but we can't be our best unless everyone plays their role to the best of their ability, right? And that's what I was super proud of. And so like my mentality was not about, I need to be the best small forward or best power forward, in the conference or in the league. My only goal was I need to be the best small forward, best power forward for what my team requires. And when you have a bunch of folks thinking like that I need to be the best in my role for my team, amazing, amazing things happen. When I was with the Miami Heat and ran data analytics, we embarked on a 3-year study through data, trying to figure out where are the undervalued players that we can bring into our fold. Not necessarily the players that scored the most, that were obvious ads, but who were the players that, like me, like you had to look really, really hard and kick a lot of rocks to find undervalued assets. And it was a very ambitious study, purely through data analytics. But what came out of that was a super, super, super interesting framework, a model on what makes teams successful. To understand who you need to add, you need to understand what makes teams successful. Sure. And we found that the two most important aspects of any team situation, it could be your corporate setting, it could be your family, okay? This is relationship advice, all right, for your kids, is the relationship between trust and what we call mission focus. And the interplay of those two will determine your trajectory as a team, right? Now, if you have a team with a low trust, low mission focus, we call that a disastrous team, all right? You would not be here if you're part of a disastrous team, all right? That's a team that lacks resilience, that lacks focus, that crumbles at the first sight of any adversity and is marred by infighting and finger pointing, all right? No bueno, okay? If you're part of that team, all right, and I've been part of disastrous teams, all right? Scary. But the other points in the matrix are super interesting as well. When you talk about a team that's marked by high trust and low mission focus, we call that a lagging team. And on paper, this is a very dangerous team to be a part of. You know why? Because everyone gets along. All right, we all trust each other. We all like each other. We all go to happy hour together. You know, there's no drama. But there's not a focus on optimizing our team. So what happens? And this actually comes from, we borrow this from industrial research, from the old assembly line plants. You know, Joe was an amazing guy on the line, riveter, okay? A hoot at happy hour, hey, clean up on the softball team. His kids were yes ma'am, no sir kind of folks, but Joe was a subpar riveter. So what do you think everyone did on the same line? They slowed their production down to protect Joe because they didn't want Joe to get in trouble. They didn't want Joe to get fired because we love Joe, right? And so when a manager is looking at the assembly line saying, why is this line, this shift so unproductive? It's because of one person, the weakest link, right? Despite everyone getting along and having a great time together. Other end of the spectrum is what we call a brittle team. Now that's marked by high mission focus, low trust. Again, on paper, this is awesome. I have a bunch of folks from Herbert, all right, HBS, Princeton, Duke, Stanford. I got a bunch of absolute ballers, killers. You know, I'm taking the mountain. All right, let me at them. Let me at them, coach. Right? The problem is that trust actually is an amazing buffer for cortisol and stress. And this is a physiological reaction. When you're around people that you trust, you're able to handle stress and adversity. Well, there's one constant that I promise everyone is going to go through in their business and personal careers. All right, stormy waters are ahead. We don't know when. They're going to hit us. Adversity is going to hit us. Turmoil, crisis. We have to deal with that. Brittle teams, if they don't have that trust, crumble like a cookie. Right? So on paper, again, awesome. We have a bunch of folks ready to take the mountain, but are unable to withstand the pressures of chaos, crisis, adversity. Okay? So where we want to live as business people, as a family, as a community, we want to live in a high trust, high mission focus area. Right? There's a shared accountability. There's a shared resilience. There's a shared enjoyment. There's a shared identity. When you walk into, University of Miami and you throw up the U, guess what? It means something. It means something, right? You're proud of your association. And I've been a part of many championship teams. Every championship team has been marked by high trust, high mission focus. Wow. And so that's a different way of looking at team dynamics and how to build and create a championship team that we all want to be part of. Because winning's fun.
Great lessons, especially for our business students that are in the audience. I'm curious, so we talked a bit about teams. I'm curious about sort of, and I don't know if you can answer this, but how do we move our society away from what appears to me to be a trend towards individualism, right? So I guess in America, just generally, we're sort of known as the rugged individualists. And I see that today, not just in this building, but in society generally. It's about my performance, it's about my profits, it's about my. How do we shift, maybe, if you can speak to this at all? Because I'm guessing you've seen different types of teams where you have these sort of more individualist players. How does a coach, and you have some experience coaching,
Yep.
Young people, how do you shift a player or a young business person or an older business person away from that individualist perspective and into a team perspective, if you can say?
We are so bombarded with images of individualism now. All right, every time you pick up your phone and you're on Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook, it is, wow, look at me. Look what I did. All right, me. So we all think, oh, that person's got the best life ever. Like I'm not anything, right? And so like all of us, we're all susceptible to this, right? And so we're socialized to think that the best way to be recognized is to have individual greatness. Right? And I gotta tell everybody, because if I don't, no one's gonna notice me. And so we've lost faith in our ability to be a part of an amazing team. All right? And it's for my young people, you want to get promoted, you want opportunity, again, win. And so how do we change that? we have to develop better leadership that talks about these sort of things, recognizes this dynamic, and teaches people that, look, if you win, you will get credit. And it's not the other way around of you have to promote yourself to raise yourself up, right? And I've played for an embarrassment of Hall of Fame coaches. You know, people always ask me, like, what do the great leaders do that you've played for? Whether it's Coach K or Eric Spoelstra or Rick Alderman or Shuby Brown, like Hall of Fame, Coach Keener, my dad, Big Ed Battier, right? Great leaders do three things, and this goes into building an amazing championship level team. One, great leaders obsess about their people. That's all they think about. That's your job as a leader, sorry. To think about your people constantly. Who are they? How do they get motivated? Am I giving them everything they need to be their best? So when I called Coach K after I got done playing basketball, and I won a lot of games, I won 131 games with him in 4 years, all right? And I was an All-American, my jersey was retired, so we had a very close relationship. But every single time I called him, when I'm in the NBA, all he could talk about was, wow, the backup point guard had a great week in practice, right? Our starting center, oh, he's feeling a little under the weather this week. I'm like, Coach, I don't care. Like, how are you doing? But like, his focus was always on his staff, his support staff, the managers, the players, right? And his singular focus on what my team needs every single day, 24/7, was what made him special. You know why? Because that's hard. It's exhausting. Great leaders will sacrifice their energy and their time to think about their people. Great leaders, all right, it's your job to remind people why they're there every single day. That's your job, okay? We had a lot of hokey, sayings on the wall, but every single time we walked into the Duke locker room, we knew what the expectations were of Duke basketball. Every single day. There wasn't a day we said, I wonder what we're about today, all right? Coach K and the great leaders I played for reminded us every single day what our mission was, what our purpose was, and what our expectation for that single day was, right? Ineffective leaders, guess what? They start to assume that their people know why they're there. And look, there's a lot of distractions, all right? There's fatigue, all right? We lose our way very, very quickly. The great leaders remind their people every day, this is our purpose, this is why we're here. And great leaders communicate. They never stop communicating. Otherwise, how do people understand what they're supposed to do? Right? And so it's talking to people, it's listening to people, giving feedback, taking feedback, right? And it's exhausting. And so ineffective leaders shortcut those three things. The best leaders, and you go in the library and read, for the rest of your time, living about leaders who do that, make that commitment, make that sacrifice of energy, time, because it pays off in spades. And that, I believe, is how you fight sort of the individualistic culture that we're bombarded by every single day.
I like it.
That's fantastic advice. And on the topic of leadership, your foundation is all about developing the next generation of leaders. And I think we'd like to believe we've got a lot of next generation leaders in this room as well. One of the philosophies that you've shared about your foundation is the way that leaders influence the world around them, right? And it starts with themselves, and then it expands to their first-degree connections, but ultimately it connects to their communities. And I think, both the Herbert Business School and McKinsey, part of this program is about improving our communities here and believing that even just these events are reshaping the fabric of business and leadership in South Florida. What advice would you give to aspiring leaders beyond focus on others, beyond be people-driven, about how to think through creating impact beyond themselves and their immediate sphere into their communities around them?
Start where you are. Start where you are. That is the biggest barrier to helping others. Right? Now, whether you're just starting on your journey or thinking about your journey, whether you're midway through your journey, or if you're on the tail end of your journey, right? At one point, I'm sure all of us in this room said, yeah, I want to help people, or I want to help the climate. I want to help address food insecurity, right? We've all had that thought. Most of us say, well, I need to be more established in my career. I need to, get ahead of my job. I need to save a little money. I need to. And most people put that on the back burner. And guess what? Most people never revisit it. Because there's always something next. There's always another mountain to climb. Right? Start where you are. In anything. Start where you are. Doesn't matter if you've put this off for years, start where you are. When I started the Battier Take Charge Foundation, I was just a basketball player. But I knew that I wanted to help kids who were like me. I had the talent, I had the drive, I had the motivation. I didn't have the network. My parents were not highly educated people, but they blessed me with energy. They blessed me with discipline. So I said, you know what? I'm going to help one kid. And now that one student, Lauren Tarr, is now a doctorate candidate in SUNY New York. Is going to change the world. Wow. Right? Just because you say, you know what? I don't know what we're doing. We're going to figure out how to give this amazing talent an opportunity to go to college. And now she's going to change the world, hopefully save our planet. Right? And from there, it's amazing when you get a little confidence. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. How much you can grow. So over the last 10 years, we've given away over $3 million in scholarships and college programming, and it's my simple goal to reach 1 million people through the success of our young people. And it all started because I started where I was. So my advice to everybody is forget your excuses in the past. Start where you are. You'll be amazed at what you can accomplish.
Amazing advice. Wow. Well, I think we could continue talking with you all day, but there are a lot of folks here in the audience that I suspect would also like to ask you questions. And so why don't we open it up? And we're blessed to have my colleague, Whit Alexander, join us as well. Whit, I know you shared with us earlier how you've been dying to ask Shane questions. So would you like to open our Q&A?
Great. Apparently I'm getting mic'd. I'll start slowly. I am a colleague of Tom's, and I made the drive over from the other side of Florida today because I was so excited about this opportunity. So almost didn't make it with the rain. It's like we'd never seen it before. Anyway, I thought I might just start by a bit of a summary because I think there's a lot of great things covered, and I just wanted to make sure we get to those. One, just the idea of finding yourself and who you are and where you fit in. And anytime you get to quote Coach K, I think that's a good idea, that we're all role players. But what makes a winning formula is how that all fits together, how you bring people together. And how coaches, through your 3 levers, I love that, are able to bring the best out of people consistently. I'm curious, my question was, through all these places, you've been around amazing, famous leaders, and you've also been a very strong role player in each of those situations. Leadership isn't always the person with the leader title, though. Many times you didn't have those titles. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that. What does leadership mean when you're not necessarily the CEO or the president or the boss?
Yeah. And most of us do not have the dais. Most of us do not have the microphone, right? Most of us, when they go into a meeting, don't hold the PowerPoint presentation pointer, right? So how do you affect a group? How do you affect a group? And look, I was a pretty good player. I was not always the most talented player. And so my dad, Big Ed Battier, maybe the greatest coach I ever played for. And the mentality that he taught me when I was in first, second grade in Little League was the same mentality I took with me to Game 7 of the NBA Finals in 2013. And what he told our teams, it was never about technique. It was about control what you can control to the best of your ability. All right? You control how you show up to practice every day. if you're enthusiastic, if you're energetic, right? Do you hustle on the field? Do you hustle off, right? Do you support the last guy on the bench like you support the cleanup hitter, right? Do you show great sportsmanship? After a game, win or lose, do you shake the other team's hand and say, great game, right? You choose how you react to a win, how you choose to react to a loss. That has nothing to do with talent. Nothing. All right? That's within all of us, right? Do you show up early? Do you stay late? Right? Do you give all your energy every single day, and control what you can control? And if you do, I promise you, the people that are around you, they will know you're about the team. And you don't need to tell them. Because people are always scanning, all right? There's one thing we're all really good at. We're all good at looking and understanding the charlatans, the bullshitters, all right? We're always scanning. Oh, hey, this person, all right, they're full of it, no matter what they say, right? We're really good at that. We're really good at pointing that person out. And so when you control the things that you can control to the best of your ability, and don't give anybody a reason to ever doubt that your intentions are about, hey, we have to win, right? Guess what? You become a leader. Now you become a leader because you've gained the credibility. It's not the other way around. You don't come in and say, well, I took this class at Herbert, and I read this book, and you should do this. No. You have to earn the credibility. I got traded a couple times in my career, and I treated it just like going to a new school when I was in 6th grade. All right? I didn't come in and start saying, well, I did this way at Duke. No. I showed people that I was about the right things. Quietly. I was there early, stayed late. Didn't make excuses, didn't point the finger. Took responsibility, right? All those things that make you a catalyst. All those things that create trust and create an environment of high mission focus. Those are what I controlled for. And then all of a sudden, it's amazing when you have credibility, when you have the trust of the people around you, how you can influence people, how you can make a difference for your team, right? So that's my advice, is to control what you can control. And don't worry about the consequences. Good things will follow, I promise.
Hi, how are you? That's
Great.
Great to have you here. I have a question, because we talk about leadership, we talk about being successful. You're a very good example of both things. And sometimes there are a lot of people that think that, well, to do that, to be that, to become that, you have to leave many other things to the side, right? And actually, I've been lucky because I have actually witnessed you, right, with Zeke and my daughter being at the same school, and you were in the middle of the season, and you were there at school with your camera filming your kids, right? And you were there many times, not just once, many times throughout the year, being present for your children. So what advice would you have, for everyone to basically say, hey, you can be successful, you can be a great leader, but you can also take care of other very important things?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that comment and that feedback. I was so blessed to have grown up in the household that I did. And again, we had very little material wealth, very little. But there were two things that were present in my house. It was love, and there was always books. And my dad worked, I was talking to Tom on a flight to Brazil one time about my dad, who used to run a small logistics company out of Detroit. And it was not a glamorous job. He spent his day around steel coils and angry truckers. And I'm sure it wasn't a job that fulfilled him, but he never missed a practice, never missed a game. And so, again, it's the lessons that we learn from our parents when they're not trying to teach us are the ones that matter. Right? A great quote I heard someone tell me one time. And so the lesson I learned from my dad and my mom was show up. Show up. which is hard, you know. Our phone's buzzing, and we have responsibilities and a lot of things going on. But one thing, it goes back to controlling what you control. You can show up and be present, right? And as a young person, again, it's not what my dad told me. He wasn't a very educated man, so he wasn't telling me, hey, you know, read Voltaire and read this, and here are some quotes. He was, be a good teammate, try your best, right? Love your friends, and be present. And I took that from him. And so, you know, advice for all the parents and future parents. All right, people always ask me, like, what's the best thing I can do for my young athlete? Okay, you know what the best thing to tell your son or your daughter after a game is? Anybody?
Great job.
Great job. Okay. Anybody else? Proud of you? The answer is nothing.
Uh-oh.
Shut it. Shut it. If they want to talk about the game, they will. And if they bring it up, now you have permission to give all your, you know, your Messi-like advice, I'm sure, as you have about you should have been in the box or whatever, right? So in youth sports, and just in general, right? Allow your kid to experience and be, and if they want you to be part of it, they'll bring you in, all right? And the number one reason kids, I think 70% of kids quit sports before age 13. Number one reason why? The ride home. Right? And that's good advice from adolescents all the way up to young professionals. The ride home. Right? So always be mindful. But if you're there and you show that you care and you love them regardless, they feel it. And they know.
I feel like there's some lessons there for teams in the business world,
Yeah.
right? Show up. Really important. As our mic travels the room.
Well, first, I think I have to address the first question. And who's better, LeBron or MJ? And like, look, I grew up in the 90s. I watched Jordan. It like inspired me, even though I was a Pistons fan. But I think LeBron did something twice that Michael Jordan could not even do once, I promise you. He won 2 NBA titles with Shane Battier as his power forward. LeBron did it twice, MJ couldn't do it once, all right? So that's why LeBron is the GOAT, all right? I'm going down with that one. You know, a book that, and I'm a voracious learner. I love to learn from there's not a person that I meet that I don't think, hey, what can I learn from this person, all right? And so that was my big advantage. That I was never arrogant enough to think I knew anything. And so I'm always voracious about maybe there's something out there that will change my life that I just haven't been exposed to, haven't learned, right? And so that was my obsession with books, and used to read encyclopedias as a kid, which is super nerdy, but I loved it. You know, the book that I always go back to, and it was actually written by a teammate of mine, father, was How Will You Measure Your Life by Clay Christensen. who's the father of disruptive innovation and the innovator's dilemma. So a brilliant man, not only in the world of business, but using a lot of business theory to optimize for your life. And so look, we can have all the business success, all the professional success in the world, but if you don't share it with your family, if you don't share it with your friends, if you don't bring people up behind you and help people like you were helped, then that success is hollow. And so that book, that's the overall arching theme that I think about a lot as I make decisions about my life and my parenting decisions and my friend decisions and my philanthropic decision. This super impactful book in my life.
Good morning. So you talk about all the great leaders that you have worked with and worked for, and I kind of wonder sometimes, is the pressure on the leader to create the right environment, or is the pressure on the team to rise up to the leader's expectations?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Whose responsibility is it? Okay, I think it's up to the leader to set the culture, okay? But that culture cannot be forwarded unless you have amazing foot soldiers to carry out the day-to-day, okay? So it's incumbent onto both. When I played at Duke, and again, when I graduated, we set a record for the number of wins in a 4-year period. We were 131 and 15 in 4 years. All right, we didn't lose a lot. The ironic part about that was Coach K not once, ever said we have to win this game. The goal was not about wins and losses. It was always about standards. And he repeated the lesson of, if we played to the standard that we're capable of, and if we played to the standard of Duke basketball, guess what? Wins are a byproduct of that. And losses are a byproduct if we fail to those standards, all right? So that was the expectation, right? Now, I played for amazing senior leadership when I was a freshman. All right, guys like Steve Wojciechowski and Trajan Langdon and guys who taught me what it meant to be a Duke basketball player in a way that Coach K couldn't, right? And I'll never forget, we had these things called 17 across. It was a conditioning test. And I hated it. I'm not very fast, so I hated it. So it was 17 lengths of the basketball court in 1 minute, okay? And if one person doesn't make it, guess what? 60 more seconds to do it again. So like this used to give me sweats at night. I'm like, oh my gosh, 17 across. I used to do like 5 times. So I'm like, oh, 17 across. I hate this. So one day going to practice to run 17 across, I tell, as a freshman, I say to nobody in particular, man, I hate 17 across. And our senior captain, Steve Wojciechowski, turns around and says, you know what I hate? Losing. And turns around, and walks away. And I felt like this big. I felt this big. And I said, okay, this is what it means to be a Duke basketball player, a Duke man, right? So if Coach K would have said that, it would have meant something, but to have that come from my peer meant maybe more. And so what Coach K did is he set the culture from the top, but it was the senior leadership and the ownership that he gave the players that really makes it go every single day. And there was an internal peer pressure to play to that standard that was set up here every single day. And so when you have both of them, man, great things happen, all right? But you need both. You need both.
While the mic's traveling, I know you talked a bit earlier about some of the great insights that came from your work in analytics with the Heat. I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that because we've got some analytics students and faculty in the room.
Well, I have a very interesting history. I was the first Moneyball player in the NBA. Okay, so back in 2006, analytics were huge in baseball. Everyone's seen Moneyball and Billy Beane and Theo Epstein, and so Major League Baseball teams had robust analytics departments and data engineers. Well, no one was doing it in basketball, all right? Everyone's like, nerds can't win basketball games. Like, you know, the same thing they're saying now. Like, you can't win basketball games on a spreadsheet. Yeah. And so it took a lot of courage for the owner of the Houston Rockets, a guy named Les Alexander, a former bond trader, was like, you know what? I think there's surplus here. So he invested in the Rockets were the first team to hire data scientists, build a data infrastructure, and to say, you know what? We're going to have analytics as an organizational philosophy. And so in one of their very first models, who popped as an amazing value as a player who is very, very cheap, but produces at outsized rate? Cheap labor, all right? Cheap, good labor. That's who I was. And so they traded for me in 2006. And at the time, I got traded for this first-round pick, a guy named Rudy Gay, who just looked the part. You know, like long, athletic, like strong, like scored a lot of points. And like, if I would have been there that night, they would have like thrown tomatoes at me, like, Battier, no, we're giving up this guy for Battier. But what Daryl Morey and Sam Hinkie knew is like, again, every team I was a part of won. When I was on the floor, every team I played on played at a championship level versus when I was off the floor. So when I got to Houston, I didn't know analytics, but I was intrigued about the different way to think about the game of basketball. And so I got to learn literally from like, you know, Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi, the way to think about data as it pertained to basketball. And the way they taught me was actually like playing blackjack, right? So when you sit down at a blackjack table, you know, there's a book that tells you the optimal way of playing blackjack, right? So if you're dealt pocket aces, what do? You always split. Why? Does that guarantee success? No. But if you do that over the course of your time, you know, in the shoe or sitting down at the table, over the course of hours, you gain positive EV by splitting those aces every single time. You know? Do you ever say, oh, I'm going to go YOLO, keep them together? No. You split them every single time, right? Trying to gain those little nuggets of EV wherever you can. Well, basketball is the same way. And so they taught me to look at every player that I guarded as a blackjack hand, okay? And so when I'm guarding Kobe Bryant, who's, you know, the greatest competitor that I've played against, I knew with the advanced use of the analytics in this new world, they can model out when you not only factor in makes and misses, which was the traditional way to look at how good a basketball player was, when you factor in turnovers and passes to teammates and their shots off that pass, the ability to draw fouls, those free throws off that play, okay? When he did right and baked in all those different outcomes, it was a 63% shot. But when he went left, and you factor in makes, misses, turnovers, free throws drawn, passes, turnovers, all those things, it was only a 42% shot. So you don't need to be a math major out of MIT to know if I'm guarding Kobe Bryant, I want him to do the 42% thing and not the 63% thing. Capiche? That makes sense? That's NBA analytics. And just like playing blackjack, do I want Kobe Bryant to go, you know, left 80% of the time and, you know, allow him to go to his right 20% of the time? No! I want him to go to his left every single time. Why? Because that creates points of value for me. Little nuggets of expected value. And guess what? Those all add up. As innocuous as it is, a left-hand drive was worth like, in that situation, it was worth like 0.2 points per play. All right? So, and I learned better than anybody in the entire game all the different trade-offs from every spot on the floor from every player. That was my skill. All right? I was not fast, but I could process information. And so my scouting reports were about 20 pages thick before a game. And I memorized every situation and can think about, okay, what's my best outcome here? Do I hit? Do I stay? Do I split? And after a while, it became pretty second nature. And over the course of my career, again, all those pieces of positive expectation add up. And I was able to have amazing success but most people are like, how is this guy having success? It was splitting the aces every single time. And so I started to look at basketball as a math problem, not a sport. And I began to think about, not only basketball, but my life is probabilistic. What gives me the best chance of success over the long run? And in this results-oriented world, it's very, very difficult because we all look to the result and we all jump to conclusions based on the results. And I became so obsessed with the process that if Kobe Bryant scored 50 points going to his left hand, 9 out of 10 times, I was able to live with the results because the process was pure. The result you can't control. And so in life, focus on giving yourself the best chance to win. Split the aces when you can, every time, right? And you'll be shocked at over the long run, over a large data sample, how much success you have. And it might be a surprise to everybody else, won't be a surprise to you.
Tells our students how important that stats class is.
That's right.
You think it's
Hugely,
yeah.
hugely. I mean, it's an amazing skill. I mean, I would make that mandatory.
Who knew it is required? Who knew there were life lessons in there, though? Right. Tom, do you have anything else? Because I have a last question I want to pose. If our audience, does anyone else? I'm sorry to give you my back. One back there. Let's take that one, and then we'll come back to Tom.
First off, thank you so much for coming. When you're like in these under pressure situations, which you've had many times in your career, do you use that same data-driven approach when you're in those situations? Because they only happen a certain amount of times. And I know from in my case, and I'm sure I speak for everybody else in the room, we don't want to screw up. So do you use that data-driven approach? And what specifically do you focus on when tensions are high and you want to succeed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, there's two things to mitigate pressure. Okay, one is repetition, right? If you practice a situation, whether it's a presentation, a speech, a test, interview, again and again and again and again and again, it's amazing when you get to a pressure situation how it's not pressure-filled. If you're not prepared, you're going to start to doubt if you have the game or not, right? So repetition is the number one cure to mitigate stress and pressure. And B, again, it's always process. Right? I had a coach named Jeff Van Gundy who said, don't fail the plan, let the plan fail you. If you go into a game plan, you say, this is what I need to do, A, B, and C. Okay, when you get to C and you start freestyling, now it's a coin flip. Now it's a random outcome. It always is a random outcome, but if you do A, B, and C like you determined before you went into the test and you fail, okay, now it's about, okay, what was wrong with maybe B? But at least you know what didn't work. When you start freestyling and going off the game plan, all right, you don't learn anything, right? So don't fail the plan, let the plan fail you. And as a manager of people, that is like such a liberating thing to say to your people, right? Hey, trust me, I've thought about this. I've thought about this a lot. I think it's X, Y, and Z. Just do this. If this doesn't work out, guess what? It's on me. All right, you're not losing your job. All right, I'm not going to crush you. All right, that's on me. I need to do soul searching. But if you do X, Y, and B, now we got a problem. So don't fail the plan, let the plan fail you. It's liberating to your people, and they can give everything they can to that plan, and you get better data at the end of that, regardless of the outcome.
Amazing
Great
advice. Maybe one closing thought, when we were chatting before, we talked a bit about grit and the ability to be resilient in the face of adversity. And reflecting on your story of being the first Moneyball player, here where we sit today, it's an amazing inspirational story of somebody who reinvented the game of basketball. But I could imagine in the moment, it was maybe a hard situation to be in where everyone in the media and the news is saying, Battier, like this guy, like come on. And you're hearing that, you're existing in that environment and yet needing to show up and deliver. How did you think about being resilient and using that as an opportunity to become what you are today?
Well, again, I had the blessing of being different. And what changed for me, I really struggled with my race and my racial identity when I was young, because I had no role models. And I used to just isolate myself. I lost myself in school, lost myself in basketball, because I was scared to offend people. And what I realized when I was in high school was, look, I'm a good person. I do my best. And if someone doesn't like me for me, I can't control the outside narrative. All right? I'm a good person. I believe in who I am, and that's all that matters, right? And so in basketball, you get a lot of feedback, all right? Twitter, Instagram, Joe the Butcher at Milam's, everyone's telling you what you should be doing. You can't make it in the bigs, and we're going to have future CEOs in this room, CFOs, CTOs, CIOs, right? You have to be able to separate the outside narrative, what we call the noise, from what's real, right? And you have to be able to look at yourself, understand where you are in that journey, and understand that the outside noise, whether that's the Wall Street analysts, whether that's whoever, they don't know what goes on in the locker room, your locker room, right? And so only listening to what's real and being able to block out distraction is going to make you that much of a business person, executive, right? Understanding what's real. And so that is one of the hardest things as you climb the road to success. Because everyone is going to have an opinion, and very few matter, right? And so, I had that gift when I was young to understand that, look, I'm never going to have swag, all right? I'm never going to be the highest score, selling jersey in the store. I'm not going to be a high flyer. I'm not going to have the most Instagram followers. That's cool. I'm going to have an awesome life. I'm going to be proud of the work that I've put in, and I know my contribution to the teams that I've been a part of, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Last chance. Okay, so the last question we ask in every one of these events is, and you've given us an enormous amount of terrific advice today, any other advice that you would give in particular to the students in the room as they think about their careers?
Yeah. Fail. You learn way more failing by looking like a fool, by asking the dumb question, by getting rejected by someone you asked to mentor, right? That's how you learn. The people that are successful in life, all right, the formula is the same. It is fall, get up, fall, get up, fall, get up, fall, get up, fall, get up. All right, when I played at Duke, again, tons of advice from Coach K. He talked about the power of the next play. Okay, and so in basketball, you have a million different ways a play could unfold and how you could impact a play. You could make a basket, you could grab a rebound, you could commit a foul, you could turn the ball over, right? And it's not so much what happens in the play, but how you react to the play. If you have a great play, and you're on ESPN, top plays, right? And you're sitting there and you're doing all the things to the crowd and posing for the gram and all that stuff. Is that the most important thing? No. Get back on defense and make that play again. Make that play again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. And on the other side of the token, if you have amazing failure and everyone's laughing at you and clowning you, do you sit there and lose all confidence and say, oh, I'm no good? No. You get back. You go at it again. You go again. You go again. And in life, not just basketball, and in life, it's the people who have the best next play speed, right? And can get on to the next project, the next challenge, the next test, the next interview, the next job, quicker and with more discipline, focus, enthusiasm, again, all the things you control, quicker than the competition, you will win. You will win, all right? And again, that's not a special talent. That is a habit. That is a habit. Can you move on to the next play? Whether you have a win or a loss, next play, next play, next play. That's what champions do. And that's what people who want to be champions and make excuses don't do. And you can hone that skill in everything you do in your daily life. That's my advice.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Pleasure, as always.
And thank you, everyone in the audience, for showing up. We have one more installment of our Future of Leadership series. We have Eric Mendelson joining us in April. Please come back and see us then on the 4th.
Reflection in the snow.